This message is brought to you by Therapeutic Associates and Portland Athletic Center of Excellence. To learn more, visit portlandpace.com. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. I'm your host, Deshaun Fauntleroy. I know your time is precious, so we're going to get right into today's show. In today's show, we're going to discuss the benefits of strength training for runners and sprinters, mental training and preparation, 3 lessons and tips for coaching runners, the art and science of recovery, and how to bounce back after injury. Show notes, links, conversation, and more at episode 46. In today's show, I have a gentleman coming on that's the creator of the Revolution Running Certification, 2011 IDEA National Personal Trainer of the Year, 2014 recipient of the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition Community Leadership Award. He holds a PhD in exercise physiology from Indiana University, a master's degree in kinesiology from the University of Calgary, a bachelor's degree in exercise and sports science from the Penn State University. This gentleman is the author of 8 books, including The Inner Runner, Run Your Fat Off, and Running a Marathon for Dummies. He's also a national certified running coach through USA Track and Field. He's taught the USA Level 3 coaching certification and has led elite coaching camps at the United States Olympic Training Center. So without further ado, I want to bring on to the show Dr. Jason Karp. Dr. Karp, tell us a little bit about your day today and what you're up to.
Well, every day is a bit different. I have a lot of projects going on. One is the writing and the promotion of the books, and then the development of the certification program around the U.S. and the world. So I'm scheduling live courses and teaching the live courses to get as many people certified as possible. And then I also coach runners. So every day is a mix of different things. It's great. I pursue my ambition every day.
You know what? I can appreciate you coaching runners, man, because I'm very fortunate enough to be in a facility. The gym that I work out of, where I train my athletes out of, we're at the Portland Athletic Center of Excellence. But on the other side of the gym, if you walk through the glass door or the storefront, is Therapeutic Associates. So the owner is David McHenry. He's the head physical therapist here. He owns this place, and he also has a personal contract with Nike. So we get a lot of Nike runners that come through here. Like, it's not uncommon to see Galen Rupp come in. It's not uncommon to see Mo Farah come in when he's in the United States. And we see Matt Centrowitz come through here when he's in town. And Dave will do a lot of the body work with those guys. And he also does some strength training. And I know one of our topics that we want to discuss is the benefits of strength training for runners and sprinters, Dr. Karp. And tell me about your experience with that.
Well, you asked me a question about 2 different kinds of athletes. And so I'll start with the sprinters first. Sprinters do need to strength train because sprinting is all about power production, and power is force times velocity. So for a muscle to be powerful, it has to be strong and it has to be fast. So strength train definitely plays a role in a sprinter's training program. For distance runners, however, it doesn't really need to play that much, if any, of a role, because distance running is all about oxygen consumption, and oxygen wouldn't know a dumbbell if it were hit on the head with one. You know, this has become a lot of dogma in the running industry, that a lot of people think that to become a better distance runner, you have to strength train. But the truth is that the best distance runners do very little, if any, strength training. And the kind of strength training they do is more specific to running.
Yes, sir.
If you just take one look at the best runners in the world, the Kenyans and Ethiopians, you know, when you first glance at them, it looks like they're pretty weak. They don't look like they go into a gym at all. And that's because they don't. They're not lifting dumbbells and barbells off the ground. They're doing other more powerful type movements like plyometrics and hill bounding and those kinds of things. So I actually don't recommend that distance runners do a lot of traditional kind of strength training, because it's better to run more. You have to run a lot to be a good distance runner.
Certainly.
Strength training does not improve the physiological factors that influence distance running performance, like VO2 max and lactate threshold. To improve those physiological factors, you have to do specific running workouts to target those factors.
Yes, sir. So what do you say in regards to, I see a lot of runners that come through here, and they're definitely not lifting heavy barbells or heavy kettlebells. I would say that it's more maintenance and from a injury prevention standpoint in terms of working simple mobility and stability functions. So are you a proponent of just not lifting any weights at all or doing any resistance training, which might include body weight exercise or single limb movements?
Well, it depends. I mean, you only have a certain amount of time and energy to devote to training. And so if the question becomes, say someone's running 30 miles a week, and the question then is, do I increase my training from 30 miles a week to 40 miles a week, or do I stay at 30 miles a week and incorporate strength training? Then the answer, if the goal is to improve distance running performance, and it's not cosmetics, it's not overall health, it's just to improve running performance, the answer should be pretty obvious to people that going from 30 miles a week to 40 miles a week is going to have a much greater direct impact on your performance than staying at 30 miles a week and doing strength training.
Certainly. So with your experience with runners, Dr. Karp, where do you fit in like the mental training and preparation, or how do you incorporate that into your training plans or programming?
Well, that comes along with the physical training itself. I always tell the people that coach that confidence comes from being prepared. If you're willing to do the physical work, and every single day you do the physical work, then the mental training, the psychological aspect of the sport, the confidence that you take to the starting line of your races, that all will be in place. Once I was talking to a Kenyan runner, and I told him that, as my mileage gets a little bit higher, it becomes difficult psychologically for me to do the training because it seems like I'm doing so much. And he stopped me in my tracks and he said to me, the sport is all physical, it's not mental. And I really spent time thinking about that, and he's right. The Kenyans, the Ethiopians, they take a very physical approach to this. Sports psychology is a Western phenomenon. The Kenyans and Ethiopians don't go walking around with sports psychologists next to them. It seems to only be the American athletes who they all have their head up their butt and they need a sports psychologist for them to get their head out of their butt. The truth is that running is all about physical. If you do the physical work, there's nothing to think about. Then you're extremely confident when you go to the starting line. And then having said that, there are mental things that you can do so that you can control that anxiety and that nervousness when you do go to the starting line. One of the things you can do is you can visualize the race before it happens. You spend time thinking about your performance before you actually do the performance. And then when it comes time to race, it's as if your body already knows what to do because you've rehearsed it in your mind a number of times. It's the same way, a Broadway actor on stage. They rehearse and they rehearse and they rehearse. So by the time they get to the live performance, it's automatic and there's nothing more to think about. And it's the same way with running and racing. If you rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, even if that rehearsal is mental, you go through all the things that happen in the race, then when it's time to race, it all plays out, the way it should because you have rehearsed it before. So nothing's a surprise. You've anticipated everything that could happen.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're listening to Dr. Karp, what he just said is that you have to do the work. And part of doing the work is that you have to come prepared. You have to come prepared. If you do the work every day, you come prepared, your mental preparation and mental training will take care of itself. The other thing that I could appreciate what you were discussing, Dr. Karp, is that some years ago, I was listening to some National Strength and Conditioning Association symposiums on audio. There was a gentleman asking a question about sports psychology and mental toughness. And the gentleman just said, who answered the question, he said, physical preparation, physical preparation, physical preparation. And he was kind of alluding to what you were discussing, like you just show up and do the work and that part will take care of itself.
Exactly. Yeah. I think one of the reasons why I think a lot of people spend time on the psychological aspect, you hear a lot about it when in reference to the marathon. A lot of people these days are running a marathon and they're ill prepared for what's in front of them. And so people are always talking, more so the recreational runners, they're always talking about how the marathon is just as much mental as it is physical. But those are the people who have not done the physical work to prepare for a marathon. If you go to the starting line of a marathon, having only run 30 miles a week, when the race itself is 26 miles long, well, then, yeah, a lot of it's going to have to be mental because you're not really prepared to get through the 26 miles. And so, yes, if you just are willing to do the physical work, there's not a whole lot to think about. Then your body is prepared for what's in front of it.
if you're listening to this, you have to do the physical work. Like Dr. Karp said, there's nothing to think about. So you have to do the work. You want to get ready for what's going to be in front of you, for the things and challenges and competitions that you can't see. You have to do the work now, but you have to do the appropriate and specific work for your event or competition. Dr. Karp, I wanted to ask you, man, what are 3 lessons or tips that you would give to other coaches that coach runners or facilitate their programming and training?
Well, 3 lessons for coaches is, number 1, to become educated in the sport. Running is all about fitness. It's all about physiology. And so, I have always found it interesting that coaching is one of the very few professions in which it's not expected that the person has a degree to get a job. Whereas every other industry, physical therapy, law, being a doctor, being a nurse, being a chiropractor, being even a massage therapist has to go to school to learn how to give massages. But anybody can become a coach, and that's not the way it should be. The coaching profession should be just like any other profession. You want to become a college coach or you want to be a private coach, you have to have a degree in the field, just like every other profession. And so we're very far away from where we can be because most coaches just simply don't have the education. And unlike other sports where there's other things involved, like game situations and setting up different plays, running is all about fitness. It's all about the physiology. When you go to a college campus, all the other sports, they have a strength and conditioning coach that works on the strength and conditioning of the athletes. When you visit the cross-country and track team, it's the cross-country and track coach is also the strength and conditioning coach. They don't have a separate strength and conditioning coach because cross-country and track is all about strength and conditioning. And so that demands more education on the part of the coach. And so that's one lesson, that's one piece of advice I would give for coaches. You want to be a coach, that's great. Go educate yourself, just like if you want to be a physical therapist, you have to go educate yourself.
I agree 100%. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a sprints coach at the University of Oklahoma, and I was explaining to him, when I look at high school coaches here, I'm in the Portland metro area, and I look at the youth club coaches, and I'm talking specific to sprinters. I'm like, every time I go out on the track, I'm working with my athletes. I see some of these groups in these clubs in these high schools, they're doing the same work and they get the same results, and then they complain. But it's like when you mention strength training, it's like they run from it. It's like it's an anomaly. It's like a monster or something like that. And what he further alluded to was that, well, they don't read, they don't study. So of course, that's what they're going to say. They're going to keep doing the things that they were taught 10, 15, 20 plus years ago. So I can agree with what you're saying in terms of more education. We have to continuously educate ourselves.
Right, exactly. Just like any other profession, it should be no different.
Express to me how you see or your take on the art and science of recovery from your perspective.
Well, recovery is extremely important because that's where all the adaptations to training happen. You don't make more mitochondria while you're running. You make more mitochondria when you're recovering from the workouts that you've been doing. And so how a person recovers, what they do during recovery, the nutrition, hydration, all of that is just as important as the training itself. And so again, the coach and the athlete need to know about, carbohydrate and protein supplementation during recovery. They need to know the importance of hydration and how much to drink. They need to know exactly what's happening during recovery because that's how we adapt. Inadequate recovery means inadequate adaptation. And so recovery is equal to, if not more important than the training itself.
Certainly.
And so one recommendation I'm always giving to runners is that the easy days have to be easy. The recovery runs have to be very, very slow. You work hard on the hard days to dig yourself into a little hole and force an adaptation to be made during recovery. But the single biggest mistake that competitive runners make is that they take their easy days too fast. And so they're not adequately recovering. And it's very hard sometimes to get athletes to understand that. But again, it all comes back to the education. When you are educated and you understand the purpose of every workout, then you understand why the easy days have to be easy, and you're okay with running slow on those days.
Right.
Because you understand the purpose of the run.
Again, man, it's like you're saying exactly what I was listening to about 4 or 5 years ago, listening to the National Strength and Conditioning Association symposiums. this gentleman, he was discussing here in America, we don't go hard enough on our hard days, and then we don't recover or rest enough on our easy or our recovery days. And we wonder why we come up short sometimes, or we overtrain, or we get injured.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You should train with polarity, which means that the hard is hard and the easy is easy.
So when you're encountering injuries with your runners, or when you're speaking to the community, or if this is something that you've mentioned in your books, what do you go through, or what's your process on getting an athlete to bounce back after injury, whether it's from a physical standpoint or a mental standpoint? What are some of your systems and strategies?
Well, you just have to have a systematic training program. So, most people want to jump right back into what they were doing before they got injured, but that's a great way to get re-injured. So first you got to consider the type of injury that the person had. If it's something like a stress fracture, then you got to be really careful when you come back and just give the bone a little bit of stress at a time. So once you consider the type of injury, it's just all a matter of being on a very systematic training program where you progress, you backtrack a little bit. You can't just start where you left off. And then you have to progress at a very slow, very systematic fashion to get back to where you were before. And so that psychologically, that requires a lot of patience on the part of the athlete and also on the part of the coach, because the last thing you want to do is train too much too soon and then get re-injured, because then you can't run at all. And nobody wants that. So you have to be very slow, very systematic about how you come back. So it might start out with cross training first and then running afterward, but you just have to be very slow and systematic about how you come back from it and allow the body time to adapt to the stress.
Yes, Dr. Karp, we're getting into the fourth quarter. I wanted to ask you, for the listeners right now, what are 2 or 3 of your books that you would recommend someone go purchase right away if they're runners, or if they want to learn more about the running industry, coaching, or becoming a better runner today? Which of your books would you recommend?
If you want to be a better runner, then either running a marathon for dummies, even if you're not training for a marathon, that gives you a lot of the details of training. If you want more of the psychological aspect of running, what it does for you as a person, how it helps you learn how to deal with discomfort, how it makes you more creative and more imaginative and more successful, then my book, The Inner Runner, Running to a More Successful, Creative, and Confident You, is probably the most well-written book that I have, because it really speaks to this other side of running that's just as important as the physical side. And so I definitely recommend that. And then in terms of weight loss, if someone's interested in using running as a way to lose weight because it is so effective for weight loss, then my new book that came out in March, Run Your Fat Off, is a great choice.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here first. We've discussed the benefits of strength training for runners and sprinters. This has been a unique conversation with Dr. Karp today. We've discussed mental training and preparation. He's given you some tips for coaching runners. He's discussed the art and science of recovery, and then how to bounce back from injury. Dr. Karp, did you have anything else that you might want to express to the audience that we haven't covered, or something that you would like to cover?
Well, I'm always trying to inspire people to run, as well as the physical part and the science of it. I also like to give people the philosophical side of it, because I really believe that running is the best expression of our physicality as human beings. We evolved to run. It is a part of our DNA. And when you really embrace it, it's a beautiful sport. And you will get out of it as much as you put into it. The more you give to it, the more you'll get out of it in many ways, not just the physical, but also the psychological, emotional as well.
Certainly. I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. It means a lot to me. One of the things that inspires me to do this, I played football, baseball, later I ran track in college just to work out with the team to get faster for football. But I was always that slow guy when it came to speed, as far as having average speed. But nobody told me to run track. I just learned about squatting in high school. So one of the roles or the mission of sports mastery is to be a guide, a coach, a mentor, and to provide information, to the young people out there that I didn't have when I was growing up, to make them better athletes, and definitely make the right choices, as they go further into the collegiate atmosphere and realm.
That's excellent. I'm glad you're doing that.